We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com.
Moving on to Justin Not Bieber on Facebook. It turns out the soon-to-be theater room in his new house is exactly 10 foot by 10 foot. It's tough. However, there is a 5 foot wide by 2 foot deep closet set into one of the walls. Can this be used to make the room less square if he takes the doors off? It's not centered. And if he does, could he stuff the shelves with insulation, or would that cause acoustic issues since the opposing wall would still be a wall, plus the closet is offset to one side? All right.
So I believe he said this closet space, even though it's offset, it will be behind him.
Yeah.
So at least this isn't going to be like at a first reflection point or something.
Right. That would be weird.
That I might be a little iffy on, having a closet on one side at your first reflection point, stuffing that full of insulation and not doing anything to the opposite side.
Yeah, then you'd have to hang heavy quilts and blankets on the other wall.
Yeah, that could be a little iffy. But I believe he said it's going to be behind him, in which case I think that's fine. It'll be a nice bass trap.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that it's off-center. It'll be a nice bass trap there if you can fill that with insulation. That could be fine. Now, if you have multiple subwoofers going, and I'm pretty darn sure Justin will, even a 10 by 10 room isn't so bad. If you could have 4 subwoofers, it's no problem at all.
You're also going to explode your brain because it's a 10 by 10 room with 4 subwoofers.
More subwoofers really doesn't make it louder. It just makes it more uniform.
Yeah, but boy, you would have the potential.
You could, but no, if people think multiple subs must get super loud. It can actually have the opposite effect. It can sound quieter because it's more even and uniform.
Being more accurate, yeah.
Yeah, if you have 4 subwoofers, you can put one in each corner or do the cross pattern, one in the middle of the front wall, middle of the back wall, middle of the left wall, middle of the right wall. If you can do that, the 10 by 10 room actually isn't a problem. But even if it's only going to be 2 subwoofers, you're still going to get a bit of a room mode in there with a perfectly square room. Yeah. So I think opening up the closet is a good idea. If it's behind you and you fill it with insulation, it's going to be a nice bass trap. I would do that. So I think that's fine.
I just feel like in a 10 by 10 room, at some point, you've just got your elbows and heels up on subwoofers.
I can reach out and touch mine. So
yeah, can you? Okay. Yeah. All right. And another one from Justin Not Bieber. Has there been any update on the $5,000 LeEco 85-inch 4K TV, or is it vaporware?
People on AVS Forum have received theirs.
They have?
Yep.
Okay,
they started getting them in, it looks like early February. Some of the earliest orders, they actually arrived. There have been a few little issues. There's been a handful of things. You know what? I'm having difficulty remembering what those issues are right now, but it's in the link. We'll have the link at AVRant.com. Some people did mention a few things, but it's not vaporware in the sense that people at least did actually get them in hand. So
it's real.
Yeah, the price has gone up over on Le Mall, where you can buy it, though. I believe it's up to $5,400 now. It was $4,000 initially, which was $1,000 off. Now it's gone all the way up to $5,400. So not quite the deal it was when it first came out.
They must be getting good demand then if they're
That's right.
pushing that price up. Moving on with more Justin Not Bieber.
Oh, sorry. I'll just go back. The main issue people were having was that the full array local dimming, for some reason, when you turn the TV off and then turn it back on, the local dimming was no longer functioning, even though it was set to on in the menu. If you manually turned it off and turned it back on, that reset it and it worked again. But apparently LeEco is aware of that and they're working on a fix. So that was the major thing. Everything
in the world needs a firmware update.
Oh, doesn't it ever?
Since there's a chance the Marantz SR6010 won't pass Dolby Vision signals, maybe he will consider TVs that only support HDR10 rather than limiting his options just to TVs that support both HDR10 and Dolby Vision. Does that give him any cheaper, better TV options?
Gives you all a Samsung.
All of Samsung.
Because Samsung doesn't support Dolby Vision, and Samsung has some very nice TVs. And right now, according to all the reviews, they're doing about the best job of tone mapping HDR10. Everybody else is sometimes a little bit iffy on tone mapping those HDR10 signals. Apparently, Samsung does a very good job of that. So, it opens up all the Samsung. Now, what I would say is this is actually a decent way to come at this. Rather than saying, I will only consider televisions that have Dolby Vision, now you can simply say, I want to get the screen size that's right for my room and the nicest TV that I can afford.
Yeah.
Right? Now that you're not worried whether it has Dolby Vision or not, maybe it'll end up being one of the less expensive Sonys, right? Because Sony's top tier ones, the ones that have the X1 Extreme chip in them, they'll do Dolby Vision, but they have less expensive Sony models that only do HDR10. Maybe it'll be one of those. Maybe it'll be a Samsung, right? If you're getting an LG OLED, it's going to do both, and that's going to be a fantastic TV, but maybe that's too expensive, right? So this does open up more possibilities if you're not limiting yourself only to ones that do Dolby Vision. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I still have my eye on the LG OLED. It's so pretty.
Yes, yes it is.
So pretty. Me want, but me got to save up and sell more insurance. Okay, moving on. On speakers that use a dedicated mid-range driver, like the new Axiom M5 HP that he pointed out a couple weeks ago, will there be issues with higher frequencies sounding, quote, horn-like, since the diameter of the mid-range driver might exceed the wavelength of some of the frequencies it's playing?
Maybe. It really is. It's a maybe. What goes on there is once the diameter of any this is any driver, right? Woofer, mid-range driver, tweeter, right? Once the diameter of that driver exceeds a quarter of any wavelength that it's producing, it starts to decrease the dispersion of that frequency. It starts to act as a horn. Right. The driver itself. So this is just the sound wave isn't only coming out of the driver this way, it's also traveling across the driver back and forth this way. So once the driver's diameter is wider than, it starts to happen at a quarter of the wavelength, but certainly at half or at full wavelength, you're getting very much of a horn effect. So when you have a mid-range driver, a 5 1/4 inch mid-range driver, like what that M5 speaker from Axiom has, how high is it playing, right? So 5 1/4 inches, goodness, what's that? That's up around 25,
I hope you can do this math, because I can't.
2,500 hertz or so. So 2,500 hertz or so is about 5 1/4 inches. Yeah, so
you can watch his brain. If you're watching the YouTube, you can actually watch the gears turn in Rob's head, the math gears. Very fun to see.
But yeah, above that frequency, it's going to very much be acting as a horn. Below that frequency, it'll start to cup that sound in lower, but it's not too bad until you reach about 2,500 hertz. So where did they cross it over? Right? Did they cross it over at 2,000 hertz? In which case, probably not going to act as too much of a horn. Did they cross it over at 3,000 hertz? Well, it's going to be acting as a horn up there. Axiom notoriously doesn't use particularly aggressive crossover filters.
Does that mean it's only,
only first order, like, the 6 decibels per octave type of thing? Because that's fewer parts and cheaper to do it that way.
I see.
So even though there is a crossover, maybe it's still playing quite a few frequencies above. That's not impossible. So, I mean, it depends. It absolutely depends. But you are right. If it is playing higher than about 2,500 hertz, or if it just has a very gentle low pass filter on the top of that, then those frequencies could start acting horn-like. Now the tweeter isn't going to be, so you have one driver producing those frequencies with wide dispersion, and a second driver producing those frequencies with narrow dispersion. That can start to cause some little issues here and there. So it's not something to be completely unconcerned about, but if it's designed properly, if you have a nice steep filter and you start that filter before this horn effect starts to take place, then it's no problem at all.
So if they do it right, it's not a problem. If they do it wrong, it's a problem.
That's right.
The size is not inherently wrong if you handle it right with crossovers. Given Justin's new theater room is quite small, he started to strongly consider on-wall speakers. He's never auditioned any before, but he's noticed that a lot of them list specs with pretty limited bass extension, often only 120 hertz or 100 hertz. Is that typical? Do most on-wall speakers just kind of suck? Well, their format does limit their bass extension.
If you're going for a small, slim, fairly lightweight speaker, it's going to have small, slim, fairly lightweight drivers. And small, slim, lightweight drivers aren't great at producing bass.
They don't move a lot of air. No.
Now, if you get gigantic on-wall speakers like our friend Ted, then you can play all the bass you want.
Well, if you just take the old speaker and jam it on the wall, yeah.
That's right.
But usually when you say on wall, you do mean the thin, light, kind of flatter, something
narrow,
thicker than the TV, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of on-wall speakers do kind of suck, in my opinion. When I was looking for on-wall speakers, the problem I had, I found quite a few where the front, left, right sounded pretty decent, pretty okay. But for the centers channel, literally all they did was turn one of those speakers sideways.
Right.
And since a lot of them were the woofer, tweeter, woofer type of design, that works fine when it's vertical. You put it horizontal and you start to limit the horizontal dispersion. Mm-hmm. And I was very disappointed by that. So like Revel's Concerta on-wall speakers, they redesigned the center speaker. It looks like one of the vertical, left-right speakers, but they redesigned the driver layout and the crossover so that it didn't have that problem. It had nice, wide horizontal dispersion. That's why I ended up buying them, but it was still a small, thin, light on-wall speaker that couldn't play below 120 hertz.
Yeah,
it really couldn't. So that's a very common thing. So if you want to play bass, you have to move air. That's all there is to it. You have to move a significant amount of air. That means either larger drivers, or if it's going to be a smaller driver, it has to have a lot of excursion. So,
if you're concerned about space, has he thought about in-wall speakers? He's making this new theater room. You can buy very nice in-wall speakers, and then they're just gone.
That is a possibility.
And they take up no space. So definitely look into that. He's willing to spend around $2,000 for his front three speakers. We already said the Sierra Luna would be fine for his room size, but is there a better choice? And would he be giving up a ton of sound quality with the Sierra Luna versus the Sierra 2 bookshelf speakers?
So I'm showing a little image right now, which is the Sierra 2 sitting next to the Sierra Luna. See, look at how cute that little Sierra Luna is.
Oh,
it's got a little front slot ports, about 6 inches
like a little
from front to back.
Port. It looks like a little mouth, like it's going to talk.
That's right. It's a cute little speaker. By the way, Dave has developed it so that it doesn't have to have the speaker binding post holes in the front there. It can use a magnetic grill now, so it'll look even prettier. So obviously, I haven't heard the Sierra Lunas yet. They're not out available to be purchased just yet, so I haven't heard those. But I very much trust Dave. So when he makes the claim that they can play nicely down to about 60 hertz, I believe that. When he says they're about 3.5 dB less efficient than the Sierra 2s, I believe that. There's no reason to lie about a thing like that. But he said from 9 feet away, he can get them to full reference volume. All right. Which, if you're in a 10 by 10 room, it's doubtful you're going to be more than 9 feet away from your front speakers.
How would you really?
If you have any depth to your head, and we know the speakers themselves are 6 inches deep, then you're 9 feet away. So,
if you have any depth to your head, Justin.
That's right. So from 9 feet away, he got them to full reference volume. From 12 feet away, it's hitting 100, 101, 102 dB. So, those to me seem like a perfectly good choice for this room size. They'll play low enough to cross over very nicely with your subwoofers. They'll play loud enough from your seating distance to hit full reference volume. Could there be something better? In an on-wall speaker, I believe you'll end up paying more.
Yeah, you would probably pay more, almost certainly, for on-wall.
It's so funny because Justin's been always like, the Sierra 2s are like my front runners. Convince me there's something else. That's been like Justin's whole thing. I'm like, I bought so Sierra 2s, man.
He's so worried there might be something better out there. Right. And I know that's a common feeling among people who enjoy this hobby, this field of interest. You always wonder, did I do the right thing? Is someone else hearing something better? Did I waste money? If you do your research and you buy good quality products and you buy the things that are appropriate for your room and your equipment and your habits, don't worry about it so hard. Get it set up. If it sounds good and you're having fun, quit thinking about what other people have in their house or what else you could have bought. Please don't do that with your relationships either. Just if you're having fun, you bought the right thing.
Oh, dear.
So moving on again with Justin. Philharmonic Audio is now offering several speaker models using the RAAL ribbon tweeters with price points lower than Ascend Acoustics. In particular, they've shown a mini monitor that's small and sealed like the Sierra Luna, but with an expected price point of $700 a pair. Justin might still opt for Ascend speakers for his front three, but would these less expensive Philharmonic speakers be a good choice as surrounds, or perhaps as less expensive fronts as well? I think they certainly would be good surrounds.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough. Philharmonic, one of the ways that the reasons why their price point is a bit lower than Ascend's is because they're using regular MDF cabinets and Ascend is using that laminated bamboo. which is a considerably more expensive material and way more expensive to work with. Cutting it requires diamond tip blades, and you can cut like a few panels before you have to replace those blades. It's exceedingly expensive to use those bamboo cabinets, and a lot of the cost is going into that. So a lot of it is the cabinet. Now, Philharmonic, that's run by Dennis Murphy, very famous crossover and speaker designer. His tuning of his speakers tends to be a little bit different from Dave's tuning. Now, they're far more similar than different. It's funny to hear them talk about one another because they have great respect for one another. But they're like, I prefer to tune it this way, and Dave prefers to tune it this way. And so
it's just a difference.
There's a little bit of difference there, but as surrounds, given that the tweeter is identical almost, I mean, it's a very slight variation of that RAAL ribbon tweeter, but virtually identical tweeters, different woofers, different cabinets, a little bit different tuning. So would they be a perfect timbre match? I probably no. I feel quite confident saying that, if you were A-Bing them up front right next to each other, that they wouldn't be a perfect timbre match. But more similar than different, I would
just
expect.
Like we said before about surround backs. If you want to and this isn't exactly like you're compromising with cheapo crappy speakers or anything. No, this is just, it's slightly different. It's not going to match perfectly, but I doubt you'd ever notice. So that might be a very good use of the money.
Yeah, and these are the type where the shipping cost on speakers this small, to me, it's going to be low enough. I would try them both. I would audition them. To me, that's worth the small shipping cost to really know, to really know for yourself. Because the Philharmonic speakers, very nice components. They're saving a little bit of money on their cabinets, but will you actually hear that? Very possibly
and
not.
Plus, you're not looking at them as you look at the screen.
Yeah.
So if they're MDF and they're not as beautiful,
right?
So you're in a dark room.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.